In this lesson, we're going to explore the Windows Explorer that we have loaded onto Windows 7 here. So what I'm going to do is come down here to the bottom left-hand side of my screen, and I'm going to see a folder icon, which we mentioned earlier. The drive structure inside of Windows is much like a file folder system. So that's the icon that Windows uses to basically eliminate us in terms of what this actually does for Windows. So it's right next to the Windows orb to the right here, and it's Windows Explorer. If for whatever reason you do not have that icon, you can locate it through your start menu here. But we're going to go ahead and select it here, and it's going to go ahead and pop up. Initially it pops up my libraries, but I want to bring your attention to the left hand side, the left hand column of this Windows Explorer. It's basically divided into two columns here. We've got a column to the left, which gives us our locations, and a column to the right, which is essentially our content within inside of those locations. So what I want to bring your attention to are the items located down here on the left hand side. So I've got a computer icon here, and I've got a network icon here. So what I mentioned before is you've got a file structure in place inside of Windows, and typically your main drive is going to be labeled as your C drive, and basically that holds your applications for anything that you might have installed in Windows. It holds the files for the operating itself, the Windows 7 install, and it will also hold some things like your libraries, your music, your pictures, and your videos, unless you've divvied it up to a different location. So as default, essentially everything is stored on the C drive, which is an ideal location, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but that is how Windows is set up initially. So if I were to come down here on my left hand side and see computer, I notice that I've got a little triangle here that allows me to expand what I see. Now, as you expand yours, you're going to see something different than what I have listed. This is specific to my machine and how I have my machine set up. You might not see anything, or might not have access to a C drive due to permission settings that you might have on your machine, and you probably will not see additional drives located here. But I want to draw your attention to the labeling here and how it's set up for computer, and also how it's set up for network. So as I mentioned, your C drive has all your main files for your operating system, and your movies and your videos and anything that you just might save naturally. So as we expand out the C drive, we notice that we have a number of files that are located here, and those files, as we mentioned earlier, contain folders and whatnot. So we can go ahead and click through these, and we can see different options that we have available on side of the C drive. And those files, or this drive, contains folders, and those folders contain files of images or videos or settings or what have you. And I'll drop down and I'll notice that I've got a backup here, and I've got another partition, which means that I've split up my C drive into basically two sections, and I also have a backup drive that's plugged into my machine, which essentially allows me to back up to another location, an external location, which is nice. Beneath this, I have a network drive. So I'm hooked up to a wireless network, and I also have accessibility to other networks and other computers that have shared locations on their drive as well. So I can get to it by just selecting these, the main PC or image or whatever particular drives that you have that are shared onto the network. If you're in an office environment, typically you're going to see these as shared network drives that have shared resources that you can access. Up here at the top, I want to draw your attention to this section because this is very important. These are essentially your favorites, the most used locations. By default, anything that you download from the internet is going to be here in your downloads folder location. So as you run Internet Explorer and click on download, by default these options will show up here. Also in your desktop, anything that you have on your desktop is going to be located here as well. So I've got a couple of items. I've got my recycle bin, computer access here, a shortcut for the Cam Studio. Those items are going to be located on your desktop. I also have Dropbox set up, which is just an online storage for myself. So I'm going to have that accessibility too, because I've installed an application that allows that to run. And I also have recent places, so places that I have been recently inside of Windows shows up right here, which is easily accessible. Now beneath here I have libraries, so as default Windows sets up libraries for your music and your pictures and your videos that we'll talk about a little bit later. And those are nice options to have, so as you put in your music and your pictures and videos, you can access them very easily through your Windows libraries that are set up here. So essentially that's how the Windows Explorer is set up. That allows you to locate your documents here on the left hand side, between locating them by essentially your drives and your files that you have set up here, and also your search documents up here at the top. So if you wanted to type in a particular file name, search through it by type, then you can do it up here in the search bar to the right hand side. So that's just a very quick primer on accessing and exploring Windows Explorer.